Hello there, and welcome to what can only be described as a very strange chapter in American history. We're diving headfirst into the murky waters of the 2016 US presidential election, an election so bizarre, so contentious, it would make a reality TV show blush. But this wasn't just some overproduced spectacle. This was an election that saw a foreign power, Russia, interfere in an attempt to tip the scales. Now, before you go thinking this is some Cold War spy thriller, hold your horses. This wasn't about tanks rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue. This was about something far more insidious: information warfare. The kind designed to sow discord, manipulate public opinion, and ultimately undermine faith in the very fabric of American democracy. Buckle up, folks, because things are about to get messy. We're talking about allegations of hacked emails, fake news spread like wildfire on social media, and a tangled web of connections between the Trump campaign and Russian officials. It's enough to make your head spin, but don't worry, we're here to break it down for you, piece by confusing piece. So, grab your tinfoil hats and your skepticism, and let's dive into the wild world of the Russian interference case. Because, as we'll soon see, this wasn't just about who won or lost an election. This was about something much bigger. It was a stark reminder that even in the 21st century, democracy is a fragile thing, vulnerable to interference from those who seek to exploit its weaknesses. And that, my friends, is a very scary thought indeed. Let's cut to the chase. Russia wanted to meddle in the 2016 election, and meddle they did. But how, you ask? Well, they didn't need to storm the Capitol with tiny Russian flags, they just needed our internet connection. You see, the Kremlin's chosen weapon wasn't some Cold War relic, but something far more modern, far more pervasive: a digital disinformation campaign. Their tactics? Think of it like a digital Trojan horse filled not with soldiers but with fake news and propaganda, all designed to sow chaos and confusion amongst the American electorate. We're talking fake social media accounts posing as real Americans, spreading divisive content. We're talking about hacking and leaking emails from the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta. And who was behind this digital skullduggery? Well, US intelligence agencies pointed the finger squarely at the Russian government, specifically the Internet Research Agency, a notorious troll farm based in St. Petersburg. Imagine a room full of people paid to be keyboard warriors, churning out inflammatory posts and tweets designed to stoke the flames of division. Now, proving direct influence on the election's outcome? That's a whole other kettle of fish, and frankly, a question that still sparks heated debate. Did these Russian efforts actually sway enough voters to change the course of history? It's impossible to say for sure, but one thing's for certain: the Kremlin's meddling was a brazen attack on American democracy, an attempt to undermine the very foundation of our electoral process. Enter Robert Mueller, special counsel, and the man tasked with untangling this digital knot of Russian interference. For 2 long years, Mueller and his team burrowed deep, following the digital breadcrumbs, trying to answer one very big question: did the Trump campaign collude with Russia to influence the election? The Mueller report, as it came to be known, was a hefty document, over 400 pages of legal analysis, redactions, and enough intrigue to make John Grisham jealous. It detailed the extent of Russian interference, painting a picture of a sophisticated operation designed to sow discord and tip the scales in Trump's favor. The report identified numerous contacts between Trump campaign associates and Russian individuals linked to the Kremlin, raising eyebrows and fueling speculation. But here's the kicker. While the report painted a damning picture of Russian interference, it stopped short of concluding that the Trump campaign had coordinated or conspired with Russia in its election interference activities. In other words, on the question of collusion, the report delivered a resounding "we can't prove it, but we can't disprove it either." Clear as mud, right? The report, while a treasure trove of information, ultimately failed to provide a definitive answer on the question of collusion, leaving the American public as divided as ever. It was a legal thriller with an unsatisfying ending, leaving many wondering if justice had been served, or if the truth was still out there, buried under a mountain of redacted text. Section 4, Obstruction of Justice. Did Trump try to derail the investigation? Now, if the question of collusion was a head-scratcher, the issue of obstruction of justice was a full-blown migraine. See, throughout the Mueller investigation, Trump didn't exactly keep a low profile. He publicly raged against the investigation, calling it a witch hunt and a hoax, and repeatedly pressured then-Attorney General Jeff Sessions to end it. Remember folks, obstructing justice is a crime even if you're the president. And Trump's actions, from firing FBI Director James Comey to dangling pardons like candy, raised serious red flags about whether he was trying to interfere with the investigation. The Mueller report meticulously documented 10 instances of potential obstruction, outlining Trump's efforts to curtail the investigation and influence its outcome. However, the report stopped short of making a traditional prosecutorial judgment on whether Trump had committed obstruction of justice, citing Department of Justice policy that prevents the indictment of a sitting president. Instead, it left the question in the hands of Congress, essentially saying, "We've laid out the facts, you decide what to do with them." This, as you can imagine, threw a political grenade into the already volatile arena of Washington, D.C. Democrats cried foul, arguing that the evidence of obstruction was clear and impeachable. Republicans, on the other hand, rallied around Trump, dismissing the report as a partisan attack and claiming complete exoneration. The result? A whole lot of shouting, very little action, and a public left wondering if anyone was ever going to be held accountable. Section 5, Fallout and Finger-Pointing. The political landscape after Mueller. The Mueller report, rather than being the final word on the matter, became a political Rorschach test, with each side seeing what they wanted to see. Democrats saw it as confirmation of Trump's wrongdoing, while Republicans saw it as vindication. The result was a political landscape more fractured than a dropped iPhone screen. The House of Representatives, led by Democrats, launched an impeachment inquiry, focusing on Trump's attempts to pressure Ukraine into investigating his political rival, Joe Biden. While the inquiry unearthed further evidence of Trump's questionable conduct, it ultimately fell short of swaying enough Republican senators to convict him in the Senate trial. Meanwhile, the public grappled with the fallout, bombarded by a constant barrage of news, opinions, and spin. Trust in institutions eroded, replaced by a toxic brew of cynicism and partisan rancor. The very notion of objective truth came under attack, as social media algorithms created echo chambers where misinformation and propaganda flourished. The Russian interference case, far from being a distant memory, became a festering wound on the body politic, a constant reminder of the fragility of American democracy and the willingness of foreign actors to exploit its vulnerabilities. It exposed the dark underbelly of the digital age, where information warfare had become the weapon of choice, and truth itself a casualty in a never-ending battle for hearts and minds. Section 6, A Nation Divided, the enduring legacy of Russian interference. So, where does that leave us now? Well, still pretty damn divided, to be honest. The Russian interference case didn't just expose vulnerabilities in our electoral system, it shone a spotlight on the deep-seated divisions within American society itself, divisions that have only deepened in the years since. The legacy of 2016 is a complicated one. It's a story of foreign meddling, political opportunism, and a public increasingly distrustful of the institutions meant to serve them. It's a cautionary tale about the power of disinformation in the digital age and the importance of media literacy in an era of information overload. But it's also a story of resilience, of a democracy tested, but not broken. It's a reminder that the fight for a fair and just society is an ongoing one, and that complacency is a luxury we can ill afford. The Russian interference case was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that our democracy is a precious and fragile thing, one that requires constant vigilance and active participation to protect. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Well, firstly, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Secondly, be wary of those who seek to divide us, whether they're foreign adversaries or homegrown demagogues. And finally, remember that the future of American democracy rests not in the hands of politicians or pundits, but in the hands of everyday citizens. It's up to all of us to stay informed, engaged, and above all, vigilant in the face of those who seek to undermine our values and our way of life. Because the fight for democracy, my friends, is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's a marathon we can't afford to lose.